to another episode of Inkspire, where we actually do a book review. And warm welcome to Andrew Wallbridge. Andrew, good morning to you. I think it's around 10:30 there. How are you doing? Any welcome words before we start off with the podcast?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Ravi. And it's a pleasure to be spending time with you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew. Also known as Wally, I guess.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yes, perfect. So for the audience, Andrew, I'll go through the introduction, but in terms of the themes, we have 5 themes that we need to cover.
Yeah.
We look at storytelling as a leadership mirror to start off with, and we look at identity and choices in leadership. We'll move on to redefining leadership vis-a-vis management, then people, power, and authenticity before signing off with walking the labyrinth, lessons for life and work. So that's the agenda for today.
Okay.
For the audience, we're joined by Andrew, a global leadership coach, speaker, and author whose work has touched leaders across some of the world's most admired organizations, including Google, Nike, and Capital One. With over 3 decades of experience developing leaders worth following, Andrew blends deep emotional intelligence with strategic insight, helping senior executives move beyond management to rediscover the inner journey of leadership. Now, he's the author of Leaders' Labyrinth, a remarkable leadership fable that explores what it truly means to navigate change, resistance, and authenticity in today's complex world. Now, currently, Andrew serves as Head of Leadership and Management at PSW Training, a non-executive director with Valleys to Coast, and an advisor to multiple global teams. His approach is refreshingly candid, challenging, human, and transformational. It's a privilege again to welcome a leader who doesn't just teach leadership, but embodies it, and that's Andrew Wallbridge for you. So, Andrew, we have a goal for this particular podcast. We'll look to unpack the raw, story-driven lessons of Leaders' Labyrinth and explore how its fable format offers leaders at every level a practical mirror to navigate choices, identity, and authentic leadership. So, coming to the first theme, Andrew, we look at a couple of questions. Why did you choose a fable format to tell Ethan's journey and instead of traditional leadership manual? And the second question following up with that is, how does storytelling strip away the jargon and reveal leadership in its raw human form, according to you?
Okay, so it wasn't a conscious choice to develop a fable, but I don't think I would have the capacity to write a textbook. And actually, a textbook I wouldn't enjoy writing anyway. And we all know the power of storytelling in leadership and in training as well. When I am training, I don't follow the 5 points on a PowerPoint slide. I just tell a story, and people get it. And so, with the choice of putting a fable together, I wanted people to feel what it means. I wanted them to feel what are the barriers to me becoming a leader, rather than just saying it can be very difficult. And so what I discovered was that things like story and metaphor, they stick with people. And long after reading the book or long after attending a workshop, they remember the stories. They won't remember what was on slide 53, but they'll remember the stories, they'll remember the characters. And that's the connection that I wanted to make between the book and the reader. I wanted them to read the book and remember the characters, what happened to Ethan, the trials and tribulations he went through. I wanted them to remember Wally and kind of say, well, what would Wally say in this situation? I mean, Wally's a bit of a misnomer himself. And storytelling in leadership is a powerful tool when you are trying to create excitement around a change within your organization. Then it's far better to paint a picture of that journey through story, through metaphor, so that people connect with it. So in some ways you may create a metaphor around, this is the current situation that we have right now. We need to change because and then you provide them with a metaphor, and they'll remember the metaphor. We will feel what that metaphor feels like to us. And then in terms of declaring and describing the future of where we want to get to in this change, it's often, I like to use the word hope. So often in leadership programs, they talk about vision. And I have a vision that I want to create. And that's great. But I think when you're trying to engage the workforce, you need to give them hope for a better future. What would happen if we were able to do X, Y, Z? And you tell it through story, and you paint a picture.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point behind the fable, was to be able to create this picture of these characters, of the situation that they were going through.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. So moving to identity and choices in leadership, the book's central questions are: who are you and what do you want?
Yeah.
These so hard yet essential for leaders to answer.
So who are you and what do you want form the basis of who you are. And, you know, most of us go through life, we don't actually ask ourselves that question or even answer it. And I can say, I'm Andrew, I'm Wally, I'm a a leadership consultant, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother. I can tell them all, but it doesn't tell you who I am.
Yeah.
And so by identifying who you are, you have a better sense of self. And then you used the word earlier, authenticity. In order for me to be authentic, I need to show myself. And this is how I communicate. And this is what I want. And this is what is important to me. Because if I can put, I was reading an article on LinkedIn yesterday about, what was it about? I was reading an article yesterday on using emotions in leadership. And if you share your emotions, whether that emotion is frustration, excitement, about a future, you know, I'm frustrated because we can't do X, Y, Z, we need to change. Or if I come along and say, I'm really excited about this new opportunity, then people are going to get it. So knowing who I am and knowing what I want and what's important to me, I can tap into those emotions.
Absolutely.
And then help people connect with them.
Absolutely. And there's one comment which comes into my head. Speaking to one of the leaders working at the US bank, and he was sharing that, you know, most of the times when he actually walks into office, he has to put an artificial mask like on his face, walk into office and then look at the kind of politics and bureaucracy he needs to actually go through. That's been the case for corporates. If you really look at it, you can't be too authentic. You can't really voice out what's exactly going through. But sometimes you're actually feeling very depressed, and you can't even say that you're feeling sad or depressed. You can't use the word inside the corporate. How can one be authentic? Because inside there's a different feeling, and outside the bureaucracy, you're not able to be yourself. How to answer that, Andrew?
So, you know, for many, many years, I wore a mask. And I was almost encouraged, almost encouraged to wear that mask, because a more senior manager a more senior manager than me would say, you know, you need to be professional. I don't know what that means. And so it's you know, this whole developing yourself as a leader takes years to really craft it and feel as though you have permission to be yourself and show up. You know, if you're sad, happy, frustrated, depressed, all of those things, bring them to work. Why not? That's who you are. And people then start to get who you are. And when they know who you are, they start to trust you. And, you know, trust is a big, big, big word. And it's hard to get, and it's very easy to lose. And the moment you are inconsistent with who you are, you start to lose trust.
Absolutely.
And so the environment can influence it. If you are in a big corporate, like a bank, or even in government, something like that, and it generally gets frowned upon to share your emotions.
Yes.
So what? This is how I'm feeling right now. I'm being genuine. I'm being authentic.
Absolutely.
And it takes a little bit of courage.
Absolutely. Andrew, I quite agree with you there. So coming to the next one, Andrew, how can leaders ground their decisions in identity and values when under constant pressure for results?
So, yeah, it's a really interesting question, in that as a leader, you are often under pressure. Often under pressure. You've got to hit your numbers. You have to hit your targets. You have to satisfy the stakeholders, and to ground yourself in your own values means it's not going to slow you down, but it means that you can start to communicate. I used to have a mentor, Terry. Sadly, he passed, but he used to talk about communicating through your values as a prism. And this is where your emotions really show up, because you know what your values are, and you can anchor any decisions that you make in those values, whether it's your personal values or the corporation's values. If they are anchored in something strong like values, then the decisions generally are better. They're easier to communicate, and you can put a little bit of passion behind it to say, our value says that we need to care for the customer first. This doesn't feel like we're caring for the customer. And you can, anchoring those things in your values is really helpful. And those values act as a filter for your own decision making.
Right.
The hardest part is finding out what your values are. Because generally we would kind of say, what are your values? You'll probably have a good guess, but do you really know what your values are? And sometimes those values get tested.
Yeah.
I often talk about people having personal earthquakes, and those earthquakes can be positive, like getting married and having children, or they can be negative, like getting married or having children. So, and they give your values a bit of a shake. And so the question I ask of people: do you really know what your values are? Because then you can anchor in them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Looking at theme 3 on redefining leadership vis-a-vis management, Andrew, you argue leadership shows up in moments of ambiguity and change. How is it different from management?
So management is about process. Management is about basically management, and it's a fairly new invention. Management has only been developed and invented in the last 100 or so years. And if you think about management, it's a set of processes that help something function better. And it will include things like budgeting, planning, forecasting, measurement and control, complex problem solving. Management is about the day-to-day work.
Yeah.
And Kouzes and Posner, in their book, The Leadership Factor, wrote or intimated that management is something that you do sat down. Leadership is something that you do stood up. And when change comes along, or you're being disrupted by a competitor, then you need to stand up and give people a sense of direction. They need to know, we're being disrupted. What the hell are we going to do about this? And so the leader needs to stand up and say, we need to go this way. Generally leadership needs to show up in the time of ambiguity, crisis, change. Management is the day-to-day, let's make this work effectively. And quite often I use the analogy of leadership will set the course, but management will steer the ship. And they will do the doing.
Yeah.
And so you excite people around a change that you want to affect, and then you engage people in that journey, and then you say, go and do it. Get on and go and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you believe many managers misunderstand the business they're really in?
Yeah, it's a question I often ask. There's a lot of questions I often ask, and I say to them, I say, "What business are you in?" They say, "Well, we're in engineering, we're in financial services, we're in hospitality." And then you ask them the question, "How many widgets? You as a senior team, how many widgets do you make?" Well, we don't make widgets. How much service do you provide to your end customer? Well, we don't provide. Well, who makes the widgets? Who provides the service? Oh, we have people to do that. Ah, the penny drops. So you're not in the widget. You are not in the widget making business. You are in the people business. And quite often you will see the penny drop to say, because it puts a different context on the work that they do. That they're not making widgets. Yes, they have to make sure the widgets are made in the right quantities, to the right quality, and they're shipped to the client on time. But they don't do that. They have people to do that. So manage your people more effectively. And do you know what will happen? They'll do a better job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You also write that leaders are in the people business, period. What does that demand from them in practice?
So they have to understand that when you have a team of people, there's kind of a point where two things meet. What it is you want from them and what it is they want from you. And when you meet those two things in the middle and you take account of that, then you generally get higher levels of engagement because now I'm trying to satisfy what you want from me, but I'm also being very clear about what I want from you. And when they have that clarity and they recognize that you are taking actions to meet the needs that I have as an employee, then they're more likely to want to give more personal contribution. The contribution that staff and employees give is discretionary. I get to choose every day how much effort I put into work. And if I'm having a bad day, I haven't had any coffee, I might be, I'm not really in the mood for working today. But if my employer engages me and excites me and meets my needs, or even recognizes that somebody go and get Andrew a coffee, then all of a sudden my level of engagement and my contribution increases. So I need to make it very clear that actually that partnership between what the employer wants from his employees and what the employees want from the employer. And if I demonstrate that that's really important to me and that's my job, and then I take actions to show that that is what I'm doing, and the only actions you can do, it's all about communication at the end of the day, then that becomes my job.
Absolutely. And following that question, how can leaders build trust and authenticity without falling into the trap of corporate buzzwords, Andrew?
Yeah. And it's a bit similar to the question we had earlier. Most people communicate in their mother tongue. Yeah. I communicate in Scottish, which means generally I swear a lot. Yeah. And it's about, I often use the phrase, tell me like I'm an 8-year-old. I don't need the corporate buzzwords. Just tell me so I understand. And that means I use my natural language. And so often people fall into this trap of using the corporate buzzwords. But they don't mean anything. And unless they're courageous or unless they're challenged, and I tell you what, one thing Wally would do is that if somebody came to him and was talking to him and he started using corporate buzzwords, and I'm not going to swear, he would say, I have no idea what that means. What does value added mean? what does return on investment mean? Tell me like I'm an 8-year-old so that I can understand it. And yeah, so often people fall into that trap, and they just have to. Interestingly, the piece around authenticity is. I was asked once whether you can actually train people to be authentic, which is the wrong question. The challenge that we've got is when we are children, we're very authentic, we're very spontaneous, we share our emotions, we share our feelings, but then it's trained out of us. Be professional, grow up, whatever it is, it gets trained out of us. So you have to unlearn all of the learning so you can actually just show up as show up as Ravi, show up as Andrew. That's where you find authenticity, but it's a journey again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, walking the labyrinth lessons for life and work, a couple of questions there for you. What is the one moment from Ethan's story that you think every reader will see themselves in?
It's probably what gets called, what do they call it? When you start to feel like you're in the wrong place, that I don't have the skills, and it's that moment, imposter syndrome. That's the words I'm looking for. When people get that imposter syndrome, and I've had it, you need to. So for Ethan, he basically in the book he has to manage this business. He has to lead this business, but he doesn't have the skills to do it. Who cares about the skills? You can learn skills, and so his whole relationship with Wally right at the beginning is about who are you, what do you want. In order to, he needed to overcome that imposter syndrome, and said, well, "You've got the job. You're just going to have to go and do it. Find your way."
Yeah.
And imposter syndrome, when people have it, it can be very debilitating. To say, I don't feel I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest journey for Ethan. I think the hardest journey for Ethan to overcome, because it was a big hurdle. How do I become big enough to lead this business? And he learned it pretty darn quickly because he had to. And of course, Wally's the kind of coach that doesn't let you hide anywhere. So that was his biggest challenge in the Labyrinth, I think. Plus the fact there was a lot of emotional baggage that he had at that time, which he wouldn't not pay attention to it because it was important. It was kind of defining who he was becoming. But then you kind of get that trade-off. How do I become this person and manage this situation that I found myself in?
Yeah, absolutely.
But he learned quickly. It'd be interesting when we get into book 2, which is on the drawing board. He's going to make a step change. He's going to make a big step change.
We look forward to the book 2 now, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to writing it.
Absolutely. So the last one, beyond the workplace, how can these lessons guide someone facing personal transitions like becoming a parent or starting over in life?
So run that one by me again, sorry.
Yeah, beyond the workplace, how can these lessons guide someone facing personal transitions like becoming a parent or starting over in life?
Yeah. So again, it comes back to your values. What's important to me. Like becoming a parent is can be a challenge, and I've got 6 children, so I've had that challenge a few times. And you need to ground yourself in who am I going to become as a father? Am I going to be supportive? Am I going to be controlling? Am I going to be old-fashioned and very kind of matter-of-fact with the kids?
Yeah.
Who do I want to become? And actually asking the question why, we haven't talked about why yet, but why would you want to become a parent? And why do you want to become a parent? Because when you understand the why, that's a big driver, huge driver. And for me, if I can be as good a father as I had, then I win. And I want to be as good a father as I had. And that's kind of my motivation. I want to become. My father's called Stan, and you'll come across Stan in the book briefly. And I'd love to be as good a father as my dad was.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Andrew. Thanks so much for your time. I think I also listed down a bit of objectives for this particular podcast. Wanted to highlight the book's unique storytelling approach and why it resonates beyond theory. To uncover your insights on leadership as lived choices rather than positions, and to connect the book's lessons to real world challenges in organizations and personal life. I think a lot of insights you have given in this podcast, Andrew. We looked into themes of storytelling as a leadership mirror. We looked at identity and choices and leadership, redefining leadership vis-a-vis management, people power and authenticity, and finally, walking the labyrinth lessons for life and work. I'm pretty sure I think the audience is going to go and buy the book. And as you said just before the recording, I think it's available in India at
Yeah.
So I'll put that link on social media when I actually put a teaser in. Anything else you want to say, Andrew, to your audience?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for listening. And if you want me to, so Ravi and I are having a conversation about me coming to India because it's one of the countries that I haven't done yet. It's on my bucket list, and I'll sign it for you.
Absolutely.
I'll come over and sign it for you. It'll be worth a fortune when I'm dead.
Absolutely, Andrew. We're looking forward to that. Thanks so much for your time. I think
welcome.
The book too. I think you're just starting off now, and maybe in whatever timeline, I would love to really come back and do the book review for your second book as well. And
so it'll probably take me a year to get it done, but it's all in here. I know the story.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thanks so much for your time, Andrew, today.
More than welcome. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.